What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and in continuing my series of Disney movie reviews, I'm here to let you know that The Fox and the Hound is no perfect movie. And as you can expect, an orphan fox named Todd befriends his new neighbor, a hound dog in training named Copper. But as the two of them grow closer and older, so does the mutual hatred between their owners. And I knew going into this movie, because I had seen it once or twice, that the conflict between the two was going to be the central conflict. It was going to be about how no one's really born prejudiced. It really comes down to who raised you and whether or not you gave into their teachings. And on that level, the messages are pretty insightful. And the most I can really say about what it is that makes you believe the friendship between Todd and Copper really comes down to the fact that they only have each other in their lives because they're the only ones in their lives that are close to their age. Todd only has Widow Tweed and a group of farm animals who instantly fear him just because he's a fox. Foxes are trouble to farm animals. It's true that Todd does have other friends who are birds, but they're a lot older than him and they spend more time doing important things as opposed to just hanging out with him. And Copper, of course, is looked down upon by Chief and the hunter Amos just because he is a dumb puppy who hasn't really had a ton of training yet. So, at the very least, it's easy to understand why the two of them gravitate towards each other. The problem is the scenes between the two of them where they are friends, the happy moments in the movie, they last for about a minute each, and then it just moves on to the next one until there is a central conflict. If anything, the conflict between the neighbors was actually a little more well developed because Widow Tweed she has to make a lot of tough choices once Amos keeps coming over and threatening Todd's life. And the choices she makes, you really feel the emotional toll that it takes on her because Todd is the only one really in her life that she can connect to now that she doesn't have anyone else to depend upon. And when she has to make a certain sacrifice, it leads to easily the saddest scene in the entire movie. Just the level of emotions played on screen without any dialogue, just the imagery and the music. That was effective. I almost teared up during that part. And Amos Slade, when you really think about it, isn't actually a pure evil guy. He's just a professional hunter who goes about his job by the law. It isn't until the climax where he really does anything illegal, and even then you can understand that his methods and the reasons he's going after Todd are not really about hunting, it's just personal revenge. So he's surprisingly a much more complex villain than I thought he was going to be. But the thing is, the tension between Todd and Copper when there's supposed to be some didn't really feel as urgent because it involves Todd being responsible for the injury of Chief, the older dog, who in the original script was supposed to die in order to set up the conflict. And the younger animators were fighting with the older producers over the fact that he really should die to raise the stakes and make it intense, but they're just like, no, we're not doing that. We haven't killed a main character in a Disney movie, and we're not starting now, which... Bambi's mom, asshole. Bambi's mom. But they changed it to Chief just having a broken leg. They had the animators, open his eyes, and... I didn't feel anything. A broken leg just wasn't enough to justify this cat and mouse game between the two of them. And I feel like it's worth pointing out that 17 animators gave their resignations during the making of this movie. One of them being Don Bluth, Disney's future rival, the guy who made Secret of Nim, Land Before Time, American Tail their competition in the 80s. You just gotta wonder what else happened between them and Disney. Even the side characters spend so much time in their own subplots as opposed to helping to settle the feud between Todd and Copper's families. And it's not to say that they're bad side characters. There's these two that are basically the Timon and Pumbaa of the movie, and one of them, this dumb woodpecker, is played by Paul Winchell, the original Tigger, which... that alone was enough to like him as a character. He has the exact same features. He's a likable doofus. The voice is just so irresistible, you just can't help but smile. The side character who really contributes the most to the overall plot is this nearby owl named Big Mama, who's not only responsible for Todd getting adopted by Willow Tweed in the first place, but she's the one who is the first to really tell Todd the cold truth about what it really means for Copper to be a hunting dog and whether or not they're really going to stay friends. it's clear as day that she doesn't really want to say all these bad things to Todd, and she even says, I hope you're right that you can still be friends. But at the same time, it's nice that she's so open to admit the cold realities to a character. That was something I wasn't really expecting. Although it is kind of distracting that she keeps breaking into song during her lessons to Todd, because it technically isn't really a musical. Calling The Fox and the Hound a musical is like saying that Tarzan is a musical. It technically isn't. It just has people singing over certain scenes where there isn't any dialogue. But, I mean, the songs themselves are okay. It has a unique feel, almost like Robin Hood, where it's more of an emphasis on folk music to tell the story. And, it all sounded good. It just sounded a little too generic and nothing really stood out. And the voice actors also do a really good job in playing Todd and Copper. Keith Mitchell and Corey Feldman. Yep, that's right. Corey Feldman is Copper, and you know what? His voice does kind of add to the cutesiness of the character. And that's what makes you believe the chemistry between the two of them. They're cutesy in the right ways. And as an adult, Mickey Rooney has this youthful optimism as Todd that really makes you sell the fact that he still, in the long run, hasn't really learned a ton and still believes that the two of them can be friends despite the fact that things are clear as day to him changing. And Kurt Russell, in the one or two scenes that he has, because Copper doesn't actually talk that much as an adult, you can sense just by listening to him that he has this matured but also kind of cynical outlook on life where he's just faced the fact in his mind that the two of them can't spend any more time with each other. And you really believe, out of the entire conflict between Todd and Copper, that is the most you genuinely believe out of them. So on the whole, The Fox and the Hound does have some good performances and some insightful messages. It just so happens that the conflict itself between the Fox and the Hound wasn't really as fleshed out as the rest of the feud was. And, sometimes you can get away with that in some movies, but I didn't feel like this movie could. So for those reasons, even though overall there's plenty to enjoy about it, I am going to give The Fox and the Hound a 3 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. If you have seen Fox and the Hound, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Be sure to stay tuned for more Disney reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.